Hans Wilsdorf was a man ahead of his time. With a relentless drive and a passion for precision, he revolutionized the world of timekeeping. Born in a small town in Germany, Wilsdorf had a vision of creating wristwatches that were not only functional but also stylish. He worked tirelessly to make his dream a reality and in the process, founded one of the most recognizable luxury brands in the world, Rolex. From humble beginnings, Hans rose to the top of the industry, earning a reputation as one of the greatest innovators of the 20th century. This is the story of how Hans Wilsdorf created a legacy that continues to shape the world of timekeeping today. Hans Wilsdorf was born on March 22, 1881 to Protestant parents and was the second son in a family of three. His life took a tragic turn when his mother passed away, followed soon after by his father, leaving him an orphan at the age of 12. His uncles decided to liquidate the family's prosperous business with the aim of better preparing the children for life without having to rely on others. Despite their good intentions, this decision made Hans develop a habit of taking care of his possessions and being self-reliant from a young age. In retrospect, he believed that this played a significant role in his later success. He and his siblings were placed in a reputable boarding school, where they received a solid education to prepare them for life's challenges. Hans showed a particular interest in mathematics and languages, which led him to travel and work in various foreign countries. In 1900, he began his career as an apprentice at a major pearl exporting firm, which gave him valuable experience that would later prove invaluable in his career. He then moved to La Chaux-de-Fonds to work as an English correspondent and clerk for a watchmaking firm called Cuno Corton that exported about 1 million francs worth of watches each year. This position allowed him to closely study the watchmaking industry and various types of watches produced in Switzerland and abroad. In 1903, Hans moved to London to work for another watchmaking firm. He was impressed by their commercial competence but noticed a lack of specialization. This experience gave him the confidence he needed to strike out on his own, and in 1905, at the age of 24, he decided to start his own business, believing that his training and education had equipped him with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed. Hans started his first business with a much older business partner named Alfred James Davis, who was Hans Wilsdorf's brother-in-law. Their company was named Wilsdorf and Davis, and they specialized in selling watches and watch parts in London. In 1908, Hans Wilsdorf registered the name Rolex as a trademark for Wilsdorf and Davis Company. They aimed at producing high-quality watches at affordable prices. With the business experience gained during his time in Geneva, he contracted a small Swiss watchmaker named Hermann Egler to produce watches for him. At the time, wristwatches were frowned upon, but Wilsdorf was one of its earliest believers, and he convinced Egler to start manufacturing these for his company. At the time, he also registered the trademark Rolex in Switzerland. The name came to him one morning when sitting on the upper level of a horse-powered double-decker, when he attempted to come up with a name by combining letters of the alphabet in every possible way. A good genie whispered in my ear, "Rolex." The name itself means absolutely nothing and was simply selected because it is so catchy. In the early 1900s, men began wearing watches on their wrists instead of in their pockets, but these wristwatches were regarded as fragile and not very precise. Hans saw the potential in wristwatches and set out to make them both elegant and reliable in terms of durability and accuracy. In 1910, Rolex became the first wristwatch to receive the Swiss Certificate of Chronometric Precision. Hans didn't stop there, as he wanted Rolex to be known worldwide and to be both precise and robust. He was a genius in not only developing sophisticated watches, but also in marketing them, using strategies such as giving a waterproof oyster case to a swimmer who attempted to cross the English Channel. After swimming for almost 15 hours, Gleet's oyster was in perfect condition and right on time. She and her Rolex oyster made headlines around the world. Also, he manages to convince pilots to fly over Mount Everest with Rolex watches. Rolex also ventured into the deep sea, with a Rolex Deep Sea Special attached to a submarine that reached the deepest point on Earth. Over time, Rolex has become a status symbol and is now worn by people from all walks of life, from Pope John Paul II to the Dalai Lama, Fidel Castro, James Bond, and Warren Buffett. However, Rolex wasn't always seen as a decorative accessory. It was a practical tool rather than a fashion accessory. During this time, Rolex watches were not as exorbitantly priced as they are now. In 1957, a stainless steel Submariner date cost $180, which adjusted for inflation would be around $1,500 today. However, that same model now costs over $10,000. The rise of Rolex as a status symbol can be traced back to a crisis in the Swiss watch industry. During the 1970s and 1980s, a quartz crisis swept the industry, as battery-powered quartz watches overtook mechanical watches in popularity. Brands like Rolex could not compete on price with the Asian watchmakers, so they pivoted to offer something different: their heritage, status, and craftsmanship. Rolex invested heavily in building its brand image through strategic marketing tactics, such as placing clocks in airports and sponsoring luxury activities like golf and tennis. Despite the quartz crisis, Rolex managed to remain relevant, and over time, its watches became objects of desire. Hans had withdrawn himself from the watch business long before he passed away in Geneva at the age of 79. After the death of his wife Florence Crotty in 1945, he transferred the company's responsibility to the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. As he did not have any children, the company ownership and control were passed on to the trust. Today, Rolex is a renowned brand and the leading luxury watch manufacturer in the world, producing over 2,000 watches daily and generating billions in sales each year. The company remains privately owned and controlled by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, which contributes to its prestige built on innovation, precision, and functionality. This makes Rolex a prime example of establishing a strong reputation first and then allowing it to speak for itself.